Hello, horror fans. Here's part 3 to the binge tales. Enjoy.
Benny and Jazz had always been fascinated by urban exploration. The thrill of venturing into abandoned buildings where the echoes of forgotten secrets whispered in the darkness appealed to their adventurous spirits. One fateful night, they stumbled upon an old building that seemed to call out to them. Standing tall in the heart of the city, the derelict structure loomed like a shadow from a forgotten era. Its windows were shattered, and ivy had claimed the decaying walls. Benny and Jazz eagerly made their way inside flashlight beams slicing through the thick darkness. As they ascended to the top floor, their excitement along with uneasiness. The floorboards creaked beneath their feet as if letting all know of their presence. Ignoring the warning signs, they pushed open a decrepit door, revealing a room bathed in eerie moonlight. The room appeared untouched by time, frozen in a surreal tableau. In the center stood an ancient mirror, reflecting a distorted version of reality. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy sending shivers down their spines. Unbeknownst to them, this reflection hid a portal to a realm of unimaginable terror. Curiosity fueled their daring hearts, leading them towards the mirror. Without a second thought, they stepped through their bodies, passing into the looking glass like ghosts, fading into the abyss. Suddenly, silence engulfed them, and they found themselves plummeting into darkness. When Benny and Jazz landed, they discovered themselves in a nightmarish hellscape. The air was acrid with the stench of brimstone, and the ground quivered beneath their feet. Demonic creatures roamed the twisted landscape, their eyes gleaming with malevolence. With hearts pounding, Benny and Jazz made a run for it, seeking a way back to the portal. The snarls of demonic entities echoed through the night as they raced through the monstrous terrain. They stumbled upon a dilapidated structure, a haven from the torment that surrounded them. Inside, they found a dimly lit room, its decaying walls offering a flimsy shield against the horrors outside. They huddled together, desperately, trying to catch their breaths, as the terrifying, nightmarish creatures prowled outside their claws, scraping against the walls. Time passed like an eternity, and the sense of hopelessness settled over Benny and Jazz. Their dream of urban exploration had turned into a living nightmare. However, they realized that if they were to survive, they needed to gather their strength and fight back. Equipped with makeshift weapons fashioned from the debris, they cautiously ventured out of their refuge. Each step was fraught with peril as they evaded the relentless demons. Benny and Jazz utilized their wit and agility, maneuvering through the twisted landscape while staying one step ahead of their adversaries. Days turned into weeks as Benny and Jazz learned the demons' patterns and weaknesses. They realized that a symbol etched on the mirror could act as a reverse portal, a way to escape the hellish dimension. With newfound determination, they mustered all their courage and embarked on a treacherous journey back to the mirror. Battles ensued, Benny and Jazz desperately grappling with the demons fighting for their lives. The screams of agony and triumphant roars blended into a symphony of desperation as they made their way toward the portal. Finally, battered and weary, they reached the mirror. With trembling hands, they etched the symbol into its surface, shattering the barrier and creating a path back to Earth. They took one last look at the nightmarish dimension they had survived and hurled themselves through the portal. Time seemed to blur as they landed back in the room they had entered earlier. Trembling with relief, they collapsed onto the dusty floor, their bodies finally free from the clutches of hell. The adrenaline subsided, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude for having made it back alive. Benny and Jazz walked away from that old building, forever changed their love for urban exploration, tempered by the harrowing experience they had endured. The memory of the demons and the nightmarish realm lingered, a haunting reminder of the thin veil that separates us from the horrors that lie beneath.
Once upon a time, in the heart of a small, sleepy town, there was a quaint little McDonald's restaurant where everyone's favorite characters from McDonaldland gathered. It was a special day in McDonaldland, for it was Grimace's birthday. The lovable, purple behemoth with a perpetual smile on his face was turning 33, and his friends had planned a surprise party at their favorite fast food joint. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows across the golden arches, Grimace and his pals gathered inside the restaurant. Ronald McDonald, the cheery clown, was in charge of organizing the festivities. He had arranged a colorful table with balloons, party hats, and a towering cake with Grimace's face on it. "Happy birthday, Grimace," cheered Ronald, his red shoes squeaking as he clapped his hands. Grimace beamed, his round body jiggling with excitement. The other guests, including Birdie the early bird, the Fry Guys, and Mayor McCheese, all wore their best smiles to celebrate their friend's special day. Little did they know, lurking in the shadows outside the restaurant, was their most notorious enemy, the Hamburglar. He had been plotting his revenge for years, and he saw Grimace's birthday party as the perfect opportunity to strike. As the clock struck midnight, the restaurant's cheerful ambiance took a sinister turn. The lights flickered, and the once joyful decorations started to wither. Ronald's smile turned into a grimace, and the atmosphere grew chillingly cold. It was as if the very air had become tainted with malevolence. Suddenly, the doors burst open, revealing the menacing figure of the Hamburglar. His striped outfit, now tattered and torn, clung to his wiry frame. His eyes, gleaming with madness, scanned the room. "Happy birthday, Grimace," he sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "I hope you enjoy the party I've prepared for you." With a sinister grin, he snapped his fingers, and from the dark corners of the restaurant emerged his minions, tiny, demon hamburgers, each with sharp teeth and malevolent eyes. They scuttled across the floor, their claws scratching against the linoleum. Panic gripped the McDonaldland characters as they realized the horrifying truth. They were under attack by the Hamburglar's demonic hamburgers. Grimace, still wearing his birthday hat, wobbled to his feet, trembling with fear. "What do we do, Ronald?" he stammered. Ronald McDonald, who had donned a serious expression, pulled out a magic wand he had hidden in his oversized pants. With a determined wave, he chanted an incantation, creating a protective barrier around the group. The demonic hamburgers hissed and clawed at the invisible shield, unable to break through. Mayor McCheese, displaying uncharacteristic bravery, grabbed a nearby French fry and used it to fend off the hamburgers. Birdie the early bird flew overhead, pecking at the demon hamburgers with her sharp beak. The Fry Guys rallied together, forming a formidable wall of potato-based defense. But the Hamburglar was not done yet. He cackled maniacally and summoned more reinforcements. The demon hamburgers multiplied, their numbers overwhelming the heroes. The battle raged on, with the McDonaldland characters fighting valiantly to protect Grimace and their beloved restaurant. Just as it seemed they might succumb to the relentless onslaught, a bright light pierced through the darkness. The Hamburglar's evil plan had attracted the attention of the McWizard, the mystical guardian of McDonaldland. With a wave of his staff, he banished the demon hamburgers and imprisoned the Hamburglar in a cage of rainbow-colored French fries. The restaurant returned to its normal, cheerful state, and the party continued. Grimace and his friends celebrated their victory, knowing that the bond of friendship and their unwavering determination had triumphed over darkness once again. As the clock ticked towards dawn, Grimace blew out the candles on his cake, and everyone joined in for a chorus of "Happy Birthday." Little did they know that McDonaldland would always be a place where joy and friendship prevailed, no matter how grim the circumstances.
Through the Veil of Shadows. In the quiet town of Ravenswood, nestled deep within the heart of the forest, an ancient and malevolent force lurked, its name whispered through the terrified breath of children and adults alike. Slender Man. Legends told of his tall, gaunt figure, draped in a tattered black suit, a faceless void shrouded in darkness. His elongated limbs reached out like tendrils, ensnaring anyone unfortunate enough to cross his path. Tommy, a curious teenager with a penchant for the macabre, had become obsessed with legends like these. He scoured the internet, devouring stories of horror, searching for one that would truly send a chill down his spine. And then he found it, the tale of Slender Man. The allure of the supernatural gripped Tommy's imagination, compelling him deeper into the darkness. He became determined to uncover the truth behind the legend, to document proof of Slender Man's existence. Armed with a camera and a heavy sense of trepidation, he ventured into the thick woods that surrounded Ravenswood. As twilight descended, casting an eerie glow over the forest, Tommy felt a presence stirring in the shadows. The air grew heavy, every rustle of leaves an ominous whisper. Fear, tinged with a morbid fascination, propelled him further into the heart of the unknown. A chilling wind swept through the trees, chilling Tommy to his bones. Yet he pressed on, his footsteps becoming more hesitant with each passing minute. There, amidst the twisted branches and gnarled roots, he spotted something, a glimpse of darkness and elongated limbs. His heart pounded within his chest as he raised his camera, determined to capture evidence of Slender Man's existence. But as the flash illuminated the figure, a shiver ran down Tommy's spine, for in that fleeting moment he glimpsed the true horror. The faceless void fixated on him, penetrating his very soul with its malevolence. Panicking, Tommy turned and ran. The woods swallowed him whole, the shadows closing in around him. His breath came in ragged gasps as the branches clawed at his face, and his heart thundered in his ears. But no matter how fast he ran, Slender Man remained a constant presence behind him, forever lurking in the periphery of his vision. Tommy's watery eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape. In his frantic haste, he stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin, its rotting wood creaking in protest. Desperation gave him the strength to open the door and slide inside, hoping for sanctuary. As Tommy rushed into the cabin, he hesitated at the sight that greeted him. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, the room bathed in dim, flickering candlelight. Stacks of tattered photographs lined the walls, each depicting terrified faces caught in moments of sheer horror, victims of Slender Man's relentless pursuit. But it was what lay at the center of the room that sent a wave of dread coursing through Tommy's veins. A marred and worn journal lay open on the ground, pages filled with entries from those who had fallen to Slender Man's grasp. The words chronicled their descent into madness, the relentless torment that haunted their every waking moment. With trembling hands, Tommy reached out for the journal, only to feel a chilling presence behind him. Whirling around, he found himself face to face with Slender Man, his tendrils snaking out to ensnare him. The wretched creature's presence filled his vision, the world around him fading into a dark abyss. As Slender Man's grip tightened, Tommy's mind began to unravel, confronted with the sheer terror of the supernatural. Shadows danced before his eyes, tormenting his senses as he descended into madness. The journal fell from his grasp, a final testament to his ill-fated quest. Days turned to weeks, and Ravenswood mourned the loss of another soul consumed by Slender Man's grasp. The legend grew, feeding on the whispers of fear that traveled through the town. The forest, forever tainted with the presence of the faceless monster, became a place of dread and darkness. Tommy's story, a chilling reminder of the dangers that lie within the unknown, etched itself into the town's memory. The legend of Slender Man served as a haunting symbol, a cautionary tale against the pursuit of forbidden knowledge, urging all who heard it to respect the thin veil that separates the realms of light and shadow.
Barbie and Ken had always been the perfect couple. Beautiful, stylish, and so in love. They lived in a dream house adorned with vibrant colors and intricate details, a true manifestation of their seemingly perfect lives. But beneath their plastic veneer, a dark secret lurked within the walls of their once beloved dream house. The winding corridors echoed with the whispers of forgotten souls, and the flickering lights cast eerie shadows on the walls. Barbie had always been oblivious to the malevolent energy that surrounded them, but Ken couldn't ignore the feeling that something was profoundly wrong within their own personal paradise. He couldn't shake the disturbing images that invaded his dreams, especially that brunette ghost always chasing me throughout the house when Barbie isn't home, nor the unease that crept into every corner of my mind. One night, as the couple lay in their miniature bed, a distant scratching noise echoed through the house, sending a shiver down their spines. Barbie initially attributed it to the wind or a house-settling sound, dismissing Ken's concerns. But with each passing night, the scratching grew louder and closer, as if some unseen entity desperately clawed its way closer to their room. Unable to ignore the mounting dread, Ken decided to investigate. Creeping through the darkened hallway, he followed the source of the noise until he reached an inconspicuous door tucked away in a dusty corner of the basement. As he opened it, a blast of frigid air rushed out, chilling him to the core. The room beyond the door was a stark contrast to the opulence they had known. Dust-covered shelves lined the walls, displaying a curious assortment of forgotten toys, with their glass eyes seemingly watching Ken's every move. Wooden floorboards creaked beneath his weight, and as he approached the center of the room, intricate symbols etched into the ground caught his attention. An unexpected voice whispered behind him, "Welcome, Ken. We've been waiting for you." Startled, Ken turned around to find Barbie standing at the entrance, her typically vibrant plastic features now distorted and unsettling. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural glow, and her once lush hair grew tangled and matted. Racked with fear, Ken stumbled backward, unable to comprehend the sight before him. Barbie's voice changed as she continued, a sinister tone dripping from her lips. "This house, this dreamlike facade we've been living, is a testament to the evils that dwell within it. We have become captives of our own creation, trapped within the nightmare house we once believed to be our paradise." Ken's mind raced, desperately trying to make sense of the insanity that now surrounded him. "What do you mean? Who is behind all this?" Barbie's grotesque transformation continued as she answered. "The original owners of this house were driven to madness, lured into the darkness by a sinister presence. They unwittingly unleashed an ancient evil that feeds on the dreams and fears of its inhabitants. That presence, it now thrives on us, forcing us to bear witness to unspeakable horrors." As Barbie spoke, the noose of terror tightened around Ken's throat. He knew he had to escape, to save himself and his beloved Barbie from the clutches of this malevolent force. But as he tried to retreat, the room filled with a suffocating fog that rendered him immobile. Time stretched into eternity as the fog dissipated, revealing not only Barbie but countless other twisted dolls with lives as tormented as their own. Collectively, they were all trapped within the nightmare house, forced to perpetually relive their darkest fears and suffer at the hands of the ancient evil. Now, Barbie and Ken stand in the center of the room, forever bound to their nightmare house and condemned to an eternity of terror. Their once perfect dream house has become their greatest nightmare, a hellish prison from which there is no escape. And so, the scratching persists, the tortured cries filling the halls. The nightmare house greedily claims new victims, ensnaring innocent souls into its web of terror. And as the dolls' lifeless eyes stare into the abyss, they silently mourn the days when they were no more than mere toys, the days when they truly lived. At the end of another horrifying night, Ken grew a pair and broke it off with Barbie. As Barbie sits in her enormous now nightmare house crying in denial of the breakup, Ken shows up to give the keys back, and with his new girlfriend he met at Mattel. This made Barbie very mad, and as they were leaving, waving her goodbyes, Barbie in a very evil and high-pitched voice yells, "This is not over. You will pay for this," followed by a very malevolent laugh. In the end, Barbie, as oblivious as she was, made Ken walk away, but what Ken did showing up with his new girlfriend just might haunt him for the rest of his life. The night was dark and moonless as Mark gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white under the strain. Rain lashed against the windshield, obscuring his view of the highway ahead. He could barely make out the painted lines that guided his path through the dense sheets of water. The rhythmic thumping of raindrops on the roof created an eerie symphony that seemed to echo his growing unease. Miles away from the nearest town, Mark was regretting his decision to take this desolate shortcut home. His GPS had gone silent hours ago, leaving him alone with the relentless storm and his thoughts. His tired eyes strained to stay open, fatigue gnawing at his every nerve. Just when Mark was on the brink of dozing off, a flicker of movement caught his attention. He squinted into the rain-soaked darkness, his heart skipping a beat. Two glowing orbs emerged from the shadows, fixed on him like malevolent stars. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, but the eyes remained, steadily growing larger as the source of the light approached. As the figure drew nearer, Mark's heart raced even faster. The rain cleared for a brief moment, revealing the nightmarish visage before him. Towering over the road was a monstrous creature, its grotesque form illuminated by the headlights. Its skin was a mottled canvas of sickly grays and greens, stretched tautly over sinew and bone. Jagged spikes protruded from its hunched back, and its elongated limbs ended in gnarled claws that seemed designed to rend flesh from bone.
Shit,
Mark's breath
what am I
caught
gonna
in
do?
his throat as the creature's mouth opened, revealing rows of needle-like teeth dripping with a viscous liquid. He slammed on the brakes, the screeching tires piercing the night. The monstrous being stood in the middle of the road, seemingly unfazed by the blaring horn and flashing lights. His mind raced, torn between fight and flight. His trembling hands fumbled for his phone, but a glance told him that there was no signal. Panic surged through his veins, the fight-or-flight response leaving him paralyzed. The creature began to move, a lumbering gait that defied its apparent size. Mark could hear the thuds of its footsteps over the pounding rain. Desperation lent him courage as he yanked the door open and stumbled out of the car, his legs nearly giving way beneath him. Rain drenched him in seconds, plastering his clothes to his skin. He stumbled backward, his eyes locked onto the advancing horror. There was nowhere to run, no place to hide. In a last-ditch effort, Mark turned and sprinted into the nearby woods, the underbrush clawing at him as he pushed deeper into the darkness. Every rustling leaf, every snapping twig, seemed to herald the creature's approach. His lungs burned, his muscles screamed, but he didn't stop until he collapsed against the trunk of a massive tree. He pressed his hand to his chest, his heart pounding so violently he thought it might burst. Mark strained his ears, listening for any sign of pursuit, but all he could hear was the steady rain. He glanced around, disoriented and breathless, trying to make sense of his surroundings. That's when he realized he was not alone.
What the hell are you?
Glaring eyes peered out from the shadows, and Mark's blood ran cold as he realized they belonged to more of the nightmarish creatures. They circled him, their eerie growls blending with the symphony of raindrops. There was no escape, no hope left. As they closed in, Mark's mind flashed to his family, his friends, all the moments he'd taken for granted. He whispered a desperate prayer, his voice lost in the storm.
They'll always be
And
with
then
you.
the monsters lunged. The following morning, a search party scoured the area, finding only Mark's abandoned car and signs of a struggle. The rain had washed away any traces, leaving only a haunting sense of dread hanging in the air. The highway remained empty, the woods silent, as if holding tightly to the secret of what had transpired that fateful night. And to this day, drivers avoid that desolate stretch of road. For those who dare to travel, it might just come face to face with the monsters that lurk in the rain-soaked darkness.
Once upon a time in the turquoise waters of a remote tropical paradise, there lived a bold and adventurous ocean diver named Jake. He spent his days exploring the mysterious depths, searching for hidden shipwrecks and long-lost treasures. His love for the ocean was matched only by his insatiable hunger for adventure. One sunny morning, Jake set out from the small coastal village aboard his trusty diving boat, equipped with all the necessary gear. The ocean waves danced playfully beneath his vessel, as he sailed further and further away from the safety of the shore. Little did he know that a dark and malevolent force lurked beneath the tranquil surface. As he arrived at the rumored location of a legendary sunken treasure, Jake prepared himself for the dive of a lifetime. He donned his wetsuit, secured his oxygen tank, and double-checked his diving equipment. With his heart pounding with excitement, he plunged into the crystalline waters, disappearing into the unknown depths. As Jake descended deeper into the cold, dark abyss, the beauty of the underwater world enveloped him. Schools of brightly colored fish darted through the coral reefs, and gentle sea turtles glided gracefully overhead. But amidst this picturesque scene, an eerie stillness hinted at something sinister lurking nearby. Guided by his underwater flashlight, Jake continued his descent, following the trail of wreckage that led him closer to the treasure. Suddenly, a shadowy figure emerged from the murky distance, dwarfing everything else around it. It was a colossal sea monster, its grotesque features sending a chill down Jake's spine. Terrified but determined, Jake tried to reason with the creature, but it had already set its savage eyes upon him. With a mouthful of razor-sharp teeth and tentacles that seemed to stretch on forever, the sea monster lunged towards him, its hunger evident in its every movement. In a desperate bid to survive, Jake kicked himself away narrowly, avoiding the monster's lethal grasp. He swam with all his might, racing towards the surface and the safety of his boat. But to his horror, the sea monster pursued him relentlessly. As Jake burst through the surface, gasping for air, he cried out to his crewmates aboard the boat for help. Panicked, they maneuvered the vessel in a desperate attempt to escape the wrath of the monstrous creature. The boat sped through the water, its engine roaring, but the enraged sea monster refused to relent. In an unexpected turn of events, the colossal creature struck the boat with such force that it flipped over, throwing Jake into the turbulent sea. Disoriented and disheartened, he realized that his escape had been futile. The sea monster's cold, lifeless eyes locked onto him as it descended upon him once more. Powerless against the beast's massive strength, Jake felt himself being dragged deeper and deeper into the abyss. The ocean's pressure intensified around him, squeezing the air from his lungs. As he tumbled through the abyssal darkness, his mind filled with regret for venturing into the unknown. In his final moments as he met his watery grave, the treacherous sea monster claimed its victory. The secrets of the sunken treasure remained entangled with Jake's doomed fate, forever lost to the depths of the sea. And so the tale of the treasure-hunting ocean diver and the ferocious sea monster became a chilling legend, a warning to all who dared to explore the mysteries lying beneath the enchanting beauty of the tropical waters.
In the heart of the city, beneath the bustling streets, lay an intricate network of tunnels. These dark and eerie subterranean paths served as the veins that pumped life into the metropolis above. The subway system, with its endless labyrinth of tracks and platforms, became a breeding ground for tales of mystery and fear. Amongst the countless commuters who journeyed through the city's arteries, none could have predicted the terror that awaited them beneath the surface. It was said that a creature lurked within the depths of the subway system, an abomination born from the shadows themselves. Reports of strange occurrences had begun to spread like wildfire, leaving the urban legend to take root deep within the minds of the citizens. Whispers of missing persons and inexplicable sounds echoed through the gossip-ridden alleys. The story spoke of a creature with gnarled limbs and glowing red eyes that hunted late at night when the subway was shrouded in darkness and silence. Those unfortunate enough to encounter it would vanish without a trace, their presence reduced to nothing more than a haunting memory. One stormy evening, as the rain poured down relentlessly, a young woman named Sarah found herself alone on the platform of a desolate subway station. Her heart raced as she clutched her belongings tightly, the sense of unease settling deep within her bones. The dim, flickering lights offered minimal solace as she waited for her train to arrive. Minutes stretched into an eternity, and anxiety gnawed at Sarah's nerves. Just as despair began to take hold, the distant sound of approaching footsteps shattered the silence. Relief washed over her as she saw the familiar glow of headlights peeking through the tunnels, a sign that her escape from this eerie place was finally at hand. But as the train arrived, something felt undeniably wrong. The doors opened slowly, revealing a dimly lit carriage that seemed devoid of life. Sarah cautiously boarded, her instincts on high alert. The doors hissed shut behind her, and she found herself surrounded by an ominous emptiness that unsettled her to the core. The train jerked into motion, lurching forward with a sudden ferocity that sent Sarah stumbling backward. Panic surged through her veins as she realized she was trapped, hurtling into the unknown abyss of the subway system. The flickering lights cast eerie shadows across the carriage, revealing the worn and weathered faces of the few remaining passengers. Their hollow eyes avoided any contact, their fear palpable even in the dim glow. Whispers floated through the air, but no one dared to break the heavy silence. As the train screeched to a halt at an unfamiliar station bathed in darkness, fear gripped Sarah's soul. The doors opened hesitantly, revealing nothing but an empty platform stretched out before her. Something compelled her to step out despite the lingering apprehension. Upon setting foot on the platform, Sarah felt a chill crawl up her spine. The air grew heavy with malevolence, and the unmistakable sound of unhinged laughter echoed through the shadows. It was then that she caught a glimpse of it, the creature that haunted the depths of the subway. With each step it took, the creature's long, sinewy limbs seemed to elongate impossibly, its razor-sharp claws scraping against the tiled floor. Its grotesque form was nothing short of nightmarish, its glowing red eyes fixated on Sarah as if it could taste her fear. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as the creature advanced, its unearthly growls reverberating through the station. Drenched in terror, she stumbled backward, desperate to escape the impending doom. But with each passing moment, the subway station seemed to warp and twist, trapping her within its inescapable grasp. As the creature elongated forward, Sarah's final screams were swallowed by the darkness. The shadows within the subway whispered at their victory, leaving behind nothing but an empty platform and a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurked beneath the city. From that night on, the legend of the creature in the subway grew, as did the fear that gripped the hearts of those who dared to venture underground. The subway stations became silent tombs, their halls haunted by the lingering presence of those who had fallen victim to the darkness. And so the warning was passed down from generation to generation, a cautionary tale to remain vigilant, to never take for granted the safe embrace of daylight. For unbeknownst to most, the sinister creature in the subway awaited its next victim, forever hungry for the taste of human fear. Once upon a time, in a quiet suburban neighborhood, stood a picturesque family home. It was a beautiful two-story house with a white picket fence, blooming flower beds, and an inviting front porch. The Anderson family had just moved in, unaware of the sinister secret that lurked within the walls. The first night was peaceful. The family, consisting of John, Sarah, and their two young children, settled into their new home with excitement and anticipation. But as the night fell deeper, strange noises echoed throughout the house. At first, the sounds were dismissed as settling noises, the house adjusting to its new occupants. However, as time passed, the noises became more frequent, unsettling, and impossible to ignore. Unseen entities seemed to be scratching at the walls, whispering in guttural tones that sent shivers down the family's spines. As the days turned into weeks, the Andersons' once cheerful demeanor transformed into anxiety and fear. John became increasingly exhausted, blaming it on the mysterious disturbances that kept him up at night. Sarah's once bright eyes dimmed with worry as she tried to protect her children from the invisible threats that haunted their abode. One evening, unable to bear the torment any longer, John decided to investigate the source of these eerie sounds. Armed with a flashlight and a determined spirit, he ventured into the darkest corners of the house. Crouching in the attic, John discovered an ancient moldy tomie. The tattered pages spoke of ancient creatures known as trolls, malevolent beings that fed on human fear and suffering. According to the writings, they were attracted to new homes, drawn to the emotions of the unsuspecting residents. The horrifying truth sent chills down John's spine. His greatest fear was realized. Trolls lurked within the very walls that surrounded them. These malevolent creatures reveled in the fear they instilled, growing stronger with each terrified breath. Determined to save his family, John sought the help of a wise old woman known for her knowledge of the supernatural. Maggie, a renowned paranormal expert, listened carefully to his account and agreed to help. Armed with protective runes and ancient rituals, she set out to banish the trolls from the Anderson home. Under Maggie's guidance, the family formed a circle in their living room, clasping hands tightly. Words of protection were chanted, scattering the trolls within the walls into disarray. A gust of wind roared through the house, a cacophony of wails and screeches piercing the air. Suddenly, silence enveloped the home. The presence of the trolls had vanished, replaced by a newfound tranquility. The Andersons heaved a sigh of relief, grateful for their salvation. Years later, the Anderson family often looked back on their encounter with the trolls as a haunting memory. The house, once filled with sweat-inducing terror, transformed into a sanctuary of peace and warmth. Though the idea of unseen creatures lingering in the walls sent shivers down their spines, they found solace in knowing they had triumphed over darkness. And so the Anderson family's home stood as a testament to their strength and resilience. It became a reminder that sometimes to conquer the most terrifying monsters, one must confront the darkness head-on, banishing fear to the deepest realms of imagination.
Once upon a moonless night in the small, isolated town of Thornwood, a chilling breeze whispered through the trees, foretelling the presence of an entity that would soon unleash terror upon its unsuspecting residents. The air was thick, with an unseen malevolence that seemed to cling to every shadow and seep into the darkest recesses of one's mind. Deep within the heart of Thornwood, a solitary figure emerged from the abyss of madness. The townsfolk had dubbed him the Kirk Killer, a notorious psychotic murderer who donned a Captain Kirk Halloween mask and wielded a gleaming butcher knife. His presence sent shivers down the spines of those who dared utter his name. It began with the disappearance of a young woman named Sarah, whose lifeless body was discovered days later, mutilated and marked by the unmistakable signature of the Kirk Killer. Panic consumed the town as fear spread like wildfire, lurking in the hearts of every resident. They locked their doors, bolted their windows, and prayed that they would not be the next victim. One by one, the Kirk Killer stalked his prey, always lurking in the shadows, his steps as silent as the whispers of the wind. The streets, once filled with laughter and life, now echoed with the somber sound of terror. Every stranger's gaze was met with suspicion, every rustle of leaves an invitation for a heart to skip a beat. Detective Amelia Hartley, a seasoned investigator with a mind as sharp as a scalpel, was assigned to bring an end to the escalating nightmare. Determined and relentless, she delved into the depths of darkness to uncover the truth. As she pieced together the puzzle, she discovered the disturbing tale of a troubled man, once an innocent child who had succumbed to the twisted allure of the mask and the power it bestowed. But the Kirk Killer was always one step ahead, evading Amelia's efforts with a calculated cunning. Each murder was more brutal than the last, the killer seemingly reveling in the fear he instilled. The town had become an open grave, its streets stained with horror and despair. Finally, Amelia found herself haunted by a realization. The key to stopping the Kirk Killer wasn't rooted solely in catching him. She had to understand the darkness that drove him, the twisted emotions that danced within his fractured psyche. The chase had become a deadly dance, and she was determined to lead. With blood pounding in her ears and sweat clinging to her skin, Amelia embarked on a cat and mouse game. The Kirk Killer toyed with her, leaving breadcrumbs of terror to keep her in pursuit. The final confrontation loomed on the horizon, a crescendo of horror and fate intertwining. In the heart of Thornwood's dilapidated theater, an eerie silence filled the air. Amelia stood alone, her heart fluttering with trepidation, as the Kirk Killer emerged from the shadows. Their gazes met, and for a fleeting moment, Amelia glimpsed a glimmer of humanity hidden behind the Captain Kirk mask. With a deft motion, the mask slipped from the killer's face, revealing his tortured features. The room filled with a potent cocktail of despair and empathy. In that haunting moment, Amelia understood that the Kirk Killer was not the embodiment of pure evil, but a broken soul consumed by darkness, desperately seeking release. With a heavy heart, Amelia raised her weapon, ready to strike down the terror that had gripped the town for far too long. But as her finger tightened around the trigger, a tear slid down her cheek, mingling with the blood-soaked memories of Thornwood. In the end, the true horror was not found in the Kirk killer's mask or his blade, but in the depths of a human soul, twisted by tragedy, forever lost to the shadows. Detective Amelia's heart pounded in her chest as she watched in disbelief as the Kirk killer, with the Captain Kirk Halloween mask still on his chest, rose up from the ground.
No way.
Panic gripped her,
Can't be.
and she stumbled backward, her gun slipping from her trembling grip. The killer's eyes glowed with a malevolent fire behind the mask, a sinister grin etched upon his face. "Did you really think it would be that easy, Detective?" the killer taunted, his voice laced with a chilling mix of amusement and malice. "No one can stop me,
No one can
not
stop
even
me.
you." A wave of
even
fear
you.
washed over Amelia, but her training kicked in, pushing her to regain control of the situation. She reached for her radio, desperately calling for backup, but only static ensnared her plea. The darkness of the night seemed to thicken as fear tightened the grip on her soul. The Kirk
Come on,
killer
get it
moved
together,
forward
girl.
with amazing speed, closing the distance between them. Amelia attempted to steady herself, reaching for her weapon, but her hands fumbled in her panic. The killer's grip tightened around her throat, squeezing the air from her lungs as he lifted her off the ground. His laughter echoed in her ears as he whispered, "Now it's your turn to die."
Your turn to die.
Amelia's vision blurred as she gasped for breath, her body weakening under the killer's merciless grip. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, she spotted a glimmer of light. It was her partner, Detective Mark, frantically charging toward them, swinging a heavy metal pipe. With a roar, Detective Mark brought the pipe crashing down upon the Kirk killer's back. The killer howled in pain and released Amelia, who crumpled to the ground, gasping for air. Detective Mark continued his assault, his strikes fueled by rage and determination. For a moment, it seemed as if they had the upper hand. The Kirk killer faltered, but his resolve remained unbreakable. He swiftly fought off Detective Mark's blows and retaliated, throwing him aside with brutal force. The killer's laughter pierced the night as his eyes locked onto Detective Amelia once more. Amelia scrambled to her feet, retrieving her fallen weapon from the ground. She aimed it, her hand steadier now, and squeezed the trigger. But to her horror, the shots merely grazed the killer's arm, leaving him unfazed. The mask made him invulnerable, his power seemingly derived from the twisted Halloween object he adorned. The Kirk killer advanced on Amelia once more, closing the gap with each step. Amelia's mind raced, desperately searching for a solution, and then it struck her. With a surge of adrenaline, Amelia retreated, luring the killer deeper into a dimly lit alleyway. Her footsteps echoed off the walls, each step taking her closer to her last resort. Moments later, she reached a stack of crates, her only chance at survival. As the killer cornered her, she climbed swiftly, using every ounce of her strength to ascend the unstable tower. The killer lunged at her, but Amelia leaped to safety, just out of his reach. She watched as he bellowed in frustration, his rage filling the night. Amelia knew her time was short. She searched her surroundings, spotting a rusted metal rod lying within arm's reach. With a quick but focused motion, she grabbed the rod and brought it crashing down upon the Kirk killer's
Die
head,
already.
knocking him to the concrete. The killer shrieked in agony as he grabbed his head in horrific pain, sitting up as his power faded away. Weak and vulnerable, he collapsed to the ground, defeated. Detective Amelia stood over him, panting heavily. Your reign of terror ends here,
Kirk.
she declared, her voice filled with defiance. As the police sirens wailed in the distance, the Kirk killer lay motionless, his reign of terror finally vanquished. Detective Amelia had stared into the face of pure evil and emerged victorious, forever haunted by the horrors she had witnessed. But the shadows of that night would forever linger, a stark reminder of the darkness that dwelled within even the most ordinary of masks. Amelia watches the paramedics load the body and head down the highway on way to the morgue. She decides to head to the morgue too, finish up some paperwork, and make sure that Kirk is put in the icebox. But down the road out of nowhere, the ambulance flips over and rolls straight into the ditch. The sheer force of the impact caused the doors to burst open. Kirk the killer, fueled by an unstoppable rage, emerged from the wreckage unscathed. Deep gashes covered his body, blood spattering across his tattered clothes and onto the cold pavement. Amidst the chaotic scene, screams echoed through the night as the wounded paramedics struggled to escape the clutches of Kirk's merciless grip. The relentless killer, his eyes gleaming with madness, reveled in the terror he instilled in his victims. Meanwhile, in the distance, Detective Amelia watched in horror as the ambulance burned and smoke billowed into the night sky. She had believed she had finally put an end to Kirk's reign of terror, but now her worst fears had come true. Not only was Kirk alive, but he had become even more unstoppable, a creature of pure evil. Gathering her courage, Detective Amelia quickly assessed the situation, her mind racing with thoughts of how to bring down the maniac once and for all. She knew that it was up to her to save innocent lives from the clutches of this monster. As Amelia cautiously approached the wreckage, she spotted Kirk lunging at one of the paramedics with a vicious fury. Acting on instinct, she reached for her service weapon and took aim. But before she could pull the trigger, the ground beneath her feet gave way, plunging her into darkness. Amelia found herself in an underground tunnel, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights. The putrid stench of decay hung heavy in the air. She knew she had stumbled upon Kirk's lair, a macabre stronghold filled with the remnants of his gruesome murders. Sensing danger lurking in every shadowy corner, Amelia fought off waves of nausea as she navigated the labyrinthine tunnels. She came across room after room, adorned with grotesque trophies from past victims. Blood-soaked tools of torture lined the walls, testament to Kirk's sadistic nature. The atmosphere grew more stifling and suffocating. The tunnels seemed to stretch endlessly, disorienting Amelia as she struggled to maintain her focus, but she refused to give in to the darkness that threatened to consume her. Finally, Amelia reached the heart of the labyrinth. A large chamber, awash in an eerie red glow, confronted her. The walls were adorned with countless photographs of Kirk's victims, their eyes hauntingly staring back at her. Just as Amelia thought she had trapped Kirk, a chilling laughter filled the chamber, reverberating through her very core. Kirk, wielding a blood-stained knife, emerged from the shadows. His eyes were filled with a maniacal delight beyond comprehension. With a swift, brutal motion, Kirk lunged at Amelia, his movements a blur of violence. But Amelia's determination had only grown stronger in the face of immense danger. She fought back, matching his every strike with unwavering resolve. The battle raged on, each blow exchanged punctuated by the screams of the victims who had fallen prey to Kirk's sadistic desires. In a last-ditch effort, Amelia thrust her own blade at Kirk's chest, driving it deep into his cold heart. For a moment, silence engulfed the chamber as Kirk's lifeless body crumpled to the floor. Amelia stood there, panting heavily, her face splattered with blood. The harrowing ordeal had come to an end. As the authorities arrived at the scene, relief washed over Amelia. She knew that Kirk's reign of terror had finally been quelled, and that she had brought justice to his countless victims. But deep down, she understood that the scars would forever remain, reminders of the darkness that had consumed their lives. And so, as the horror story came to a close, the memory of Kirk the Killer would forever haunt the dreams of those lucky enough to escape his clutches.
Hope you enjoyed. Part 4 will be out soon. Stay scary, stay gory, and stay malevolent. Sweet nightmares.